mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 3, Episodes 1 and 2 of FX's Atlanta, entitled 3 Slaps and Center Claus is Coming to Town, respectively. That's Episodes 1 and 2. It's been, I believe, 4 years since we last saw Atlanta. And I don't know about you guys, I was really excited for it to come back. Atlanta does a great job of blending a lot of different elements that sometimes don't even really kind of go together into episodes to make something that's unique, creative, and something that has more of an impact on you because of these things. They'll balance, humor, which you'll get in virtually every episode, with, maybe some sort of social commentary, or with or all three of these things together with I don't want to say fantasy elements, because that make it sound like I'm talking about like Lord of the Rings or something like that. But I mean like elements that don't feel things that feel like they couldn't really happen in reality. It's like, okay, what is this? Like, this is so weird. Almost kind of like that that kind of horror that Jordan Peele does, where it's like it just feels very unique. The brand of horror that he does, it's the same way Atlanta feels very unique in how they will incorporate fantastical elements. I think that's a little bit better. Not fantasy, but fantastical. Things that seem, they're grounded in reality, but they seem like things that could not actually possibly happen in reality. Like, there's no way. Like, that's the way you kind of will look at certain aspects of Atlanta episodes. Like, there's no way this could happen in real life. Like, it's completely over the top and ridiculous. But they do a great job of blending those three things to make something that feels fresh and creative and that's fun to watch. And I think that's evident in each of these episodes, these first two episodes, but I think more so in the first one called 3 Slaps, which on its surface is just the story about this black kid who ends up in a white foster home with 2 lesbian parents. But there's a lot more going on here that I think that when you know the real story that 3 Slaps is based on, you get a better idea. Like, you get something different from the episode. Like, if you get to a point like I did where you understand what the episode is essentially referencing, now the episode takes on a different kind of feel, where there's kind of like this feel of dread. It takes a dark turn once you kind of realize what's going on. And I think that's creative because, like, if you have no idea what's going on, you could take somebody who has no idea and have them watch that first episode, and they can still take something from it. They'd be like, oh, that was entertaining, that was compelling. I don't really know what that has to do with the show, because the first episode doesn't have any of the main characters in it until we see Earn waking up at the end. But somebody could take some form of entertainment from the episode. But if you know what's going on, the entertainment kind of shifts to where it's like a mishmash of like, you get the comedy, you get the fantastical elements, kind of like, this seems almost over the top ridiculous that this could even happen, with now this feeling of dread, because once you realize what's going on, you can kind of feel like, oh my God, am I going to end up seeing something crazy? So I'm going to talk about each episode briefly. I don't want to make this a ridiculously long video, but it'll make it easier for me to start doing kind of like deep dives into stuff that they're talking about in future episodes, which I would kind of like to do on 3 Slaps here, but I don't want to make this a ridiculously long video. But 3 Slaps, first, what I want to do is I want to read the official episode description. If you watch on Hulu, it'll have that there. Otherwise, I think the only other way you can see the episode description is if you actually just Google the show, and you might find an episode guide that shows the episodes and the descriptions. And some shows I think don't even have descriptions, but they have descriptions for these episodes, and I want to read them just because I feel like they're interesting, because it feels like they are spoken by us as almost like a response to what we just saw in the episode. So it's interesting to read the description before you watch the episode and then read it again after. Here's the episode description for 3 Slaps. Wow, it's been a minute. I mean, I like the episode about the troubled kid, but we waited 50 years for this? I think that's funny, because it's been 4 years since we've seen Atlanta, and they come back with an episode that doesn't even feature the main characters and seemingly has no tie to their universe whatsoever. So I think that's a good episode description. But talking about the concept of the episode here, well, it's called Three Slaps because in one of the probably the funniest moments in the two episodes combined, this kid LaQuante, I think was his name. He starts dancing in class like that meme of the kid that's on his desk dancing. Like you've seen that gif of the black kid. I think he has on like khaki like cargo shorts or something, and he's like dancing on top of this desk. This kid, he danced on top of this desk after he finds out they're gonna go see Black Panther 2, and after he gets completely just dragged by his mother right there in the middle of the hallway in front of like a teacher or a guidance counselor or something like that. The teacher, the guidance counselor sees I think this is grandfather, like just slap him like 3 times across the face. And it's like, you could write that down on paper and be like, oh, that might be kind of funny. But like just like the way he does it, however they filmed it and made it sound, it was just funny to me. That was a funny moment to me. But that's the basis for the episode, because that scene starts the chain of events that play out throughout the episode, which essentially is the teacher or guidance counselor calls CPS on LaQuante's mother, and he ends up in a white lesbian household after his mother literally gives him away because she thinks that he called and snitched on her. So she's like, yeah, go ahead on, since you want to call somebody, you go ahead on. And she like literally like gives him to the protective officers to put him in this foster home. And I'm gonna tell you the moment that did it for me, where I realized what was going on here. It's when actually, no, I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna explain the concept of the episode, and I'll get to that later, because I wanna tell this a little bit differently. But essentially, this story for episode 1 is the story of Devontae Hart, who, if you guys remember, there was a viral photo a few years back of a kid who I said the same thing. This is when I realized what the story was about, because I said the same thing when I saw the picture of this kid in this, like, I think he had on like a brown leather jacket, and he had on like this kind of like bucket kind of hat almost, and he's like crying and hugging this police officer after like this Black Lives Matter movement. And the kid looked like Aloe Black to me, when I was like, what's kid like Aloe Black with that hat on? And then apparently that was not just me. Apparently everyone thought that, or at the very least the writers on Atlanta did as well, because they said, there's a moment where LaQuante runs up to a police officer and begs the police officer to get him out of this house because he hates living there. And the police officer, after he leaves, says that the kid looks like Aloe Black. I'm like, oh shit, this is that kid. And then you go, oh shit, once you realize what ended up happening with that story. What ended up happening with that story, which is essentially what we see play out in this episode, is this white lesbian couple would adopt black kids and treat them shitty, and then eventually the story ended, I think in 2018, something like that, with the two lesbians driving their kids, themselves and their kids, off a cliff, like a murder-suicide kind of thing almost. But they well, not murder then suicide, but they murdering their kids with their own suicide. So that's how this thing ends up. This Devontae Hart guy, I don't think his body was ever found, but they presumed that, like, some of the bodies weren't found. I think they had like 6 kids, but I think only 3 or 4 of the bodies were found. But all the kids have been declared dead because they drove them off this like 80-foot cliff or something like that. So once I realized this is supposed to be Devontae Hart, I'm like, ah, shit. 'Cause then I'm like, oh, LaQuante. And then I'm like, oh, the abusive foster moms. And then I'm like, then you realize like this might be going to the place where they drive this kid off this cliff. But the episode takes an interesting turn when LaQuante, I keep wanting to call him Devontae, when LaQuante jumps out of the back of the car right before they drive off. So only the parents end up dead and the kids end up living. And then Devontae just walks all the way. Devontae, I did it again. LaQuante walks all the way back to his original mom's home and is now perfectly well behaved. Like, he learned his lesson with this ridiculous story about going through all this shit with these ridiculous white ladies. He goes back home and he's perfectly well behaved. And then he's treated at the end, which I thought was perfect, with some good old black mom spaghetti after he's been forced to eat microwaved, unseasoned, undercooked chicken at the white lady's house. So, yeah, really wild episode featuring some laughs, featuring some just interesting, like, where's the story going? What's happening here? Why haven't we seen the main characters? With a little bit of fright for the direction that it was going. So I thought it was really well balanced and really interesting and fun at times. Some of the moments that I thought were pretty funny was how they managed to work in these white stereotypes, but still make them funny somehow. Because you would think they would be kind of played out. Because like we've talked about, white people and how they season or don't season food or how they cook chicken or whatever on Black Twitter for however long. But for some reason, they're starting to put the chicken in. I think it's because the show takes such a serious tone that when they do something like that, where the woman starts to microwave up the chicken, you're just like, wait, what? Because it just so radically clashes with the tone up to that point, which was so serious, and they just seriously, casually make this jab at how they don't season their chicken, which I thought was really well done. And they do another one about them not having washcloths. It's like, I don't know, man. I think it's because of the fact that the show will play serious until it wants to do these jokes. And they do a great job of not making you feel like the jokes are out of place, still making you feel like you're in a situation where you're supposed to be a little weird or concerned, like what's going on here. But they interject these jokes and they work so well. And I think that's due to the clash in tones and not something that, it works in spite of it. Yeah, the cop saying he looked like Aloe Black. Like I said, that was what triggered it for me. I love how toward the end of the episode when the kids are riding in the back of this van going to quote unquote the Grand Canyon, they're like communicating with each other with looks. I thought that was good too. Like I feel like the writers on this show, I believe Donald Glover is one of them, do a great job of interjecting like Black culture into this show, because we know this is a show that's being consumed by more than just Black people. Like this isn't like a fucking BET Plus show and shit. Like this, everybody watches this show, and so to interject these aspects of Black culture, that it kind of feels like they're opening their arms and letting white people in a little bit. Like, yeah, this is the shit we be saying to each other that you might not really know about. We be clowning y'all on bathing and shit, right? Those kinds of things. So. Some people might see that to be a problem, but I look at it as just like it's what makes these jokes land a little bit better. And then yeah, so he gets to have the spaghetti at the end, which I thought was cool because like it's not just the fact that he's getting spaghetti on the heels of all the unseasoned chicken and shit. It's like you could just tell that his mama makes good ass spaghetti, and I think that's part of what I think made that funny to me, was that we know that that's not just gonna be any old spaghetti. Like this is gonna be a real treat for this kid to have this spaghetti from his mom. The second episode is called Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I think. Let me read the episode description. I think everybody knows blackface ain't cool anymore. We get it. They be trying too hard to go viral. Now I wonder if that's supposed to be again us as fans and how we're reacting to the episode, and we are saying that the show Atlanta tries too hard to go viral, which I think could be the case sometimes, because they always have something like, you think of that Michael Jackson guy from like season 2 and like the alligator and shit like that. Like they have moments where it does kind of feel like they knew this was gonna go nuts, and I think that's having an episode that prominently features blackface could be like their attempt to make sure that they have an episode that everyone's going to be talking about. They want to make sure that today, Friday the 25th of March, that everybody's going to be talking about that fucking show last night. And I think they did a pretty good job of that. But I love how the episode descriptions read like reactions to the episode. So that was really good too. I love that they be trying too hard to go viral because they always got something like that. But this episode largely revolves around Santa Claus, which is like this Dutch version of Santa Claus. The tricky thing about it is that he has this partner that accompanies him called, let me see, I wrote it down, Zwarte Piet, which stands for black, which means Black Pete. And again, this is pulled directly from the headlines. There was a whole situation in Holland fairly recently with people there kind of coming to terms with the history behind this character. People here finding out about this character, like, what the fuck, they just got a blackface fucking Christmas character and shit. But this episode largely revolves around that. Paperboy gets out of the most lavish jail you've ever seen, which I think is supposed to be playing on how they were saying that A$AP Rocky was in jail in Sweden, and like the pictures of like Swedish jails are going around. It's like, yo, A$AP must be chilling. I think that's kind of like playing off of that. But he being Paperboy has a concert at, I don't know, whatever venue in Amsterdam, and he decides that he's not going to perform because he looks out into the crowd and there's a whole lot of people with blackface on. And they tell them that, you know, Black Pete has blackface because it's supposed to be chimney soot, which is like the best form of a lie because it contains truth. It's still a character that's like largely has racist origins, but it is supposed to be, I think it's supposed to be a black guy, but I think he also is supposed to have soot on his face. So I think I read that they've changed it now after all the controversy to where Black Pete is, well, I don't know if they changed his name. I'm certainly hoping so, but will be portrayed with whatever skin color the person who's portraying him has. So it might be a white person. They'll still have their regular skin showing, but they'll have like blotches of soot on their face to kind of show, okay, this is a person that got soot on their face coming down a chimney, as opposed to someone, just got a motherfucker with blackface on. Like that's not soot. Like it's like you completely covered. So that's where we spend a lot of that time. We find out that Paperboy was in jail because these two chicks he was having a threesome with started fighting and wrecked this hotel room. That was an interesting aspect as well. But like I said about episode 1, this episode also injects some fantasy elements. And the fantasy element of this episode, or the fantastical element of this episode, I like fantastical better because, like I said, fantasy keeps sounding like I'm talking about Lord of the Rings or some shit. Is Van and Darius go on like this weird adventure after they find this address in these clothes, and they like say, fuck it, let's just go to the address, looking at it and shit. And they go to the address, and long story short, they end up on this path that results in them ending up at a place that seems like where like a cult is like meets at. All these people dressed in all white. There's a dude laid out on a bed, a black dude who Darius thinks is Tupac. That's a whole different thing. That's another thing that's like kind of like welcoming people into our culture. The fact that I don't think we don't do it anymore, but it was like a smooth like 15 years. People were still saying like Tupac is alive in wherever the fuck, Cuba or some shit. I think they were saying. I can't remember, but you might be a white person who say 25 right now and have no fucking clue how we had this conspiracy theory about Tupac being alive for like 15 years after he died. I think people are just now starting to accept that he might actually be dead because it's been like 25 years, almost 30 since Tupac passed. So yeah, that's another weird aspect of this. But they end up at this place and it looks like this dude is laid out and we, as well as Van and Darius, assume that this guy's dying. Van goes to actually speak to him and tells him, everything's gonna be okay or something like that. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be okay. And then they pull back, and there was like this woman who was like a death doula that Van had a conversation with before. And the camera pulls back, and in the moment, like literally my jaw dropped because I just did this. I did not see it coming. Completely out of left field. They dropped like this plastic, almost like guillotine contraption that like saran wraps this guy's entire head and shoulder area, and he's like strapped almost to the bed with this plastic that dropped down. I don't even know how you could build a contraption like this, and it suffocates this guy. And we're left to wonder, like, what even is this? Because like this could have been is this something this guy was doing willingly? Was he just asleep? Like, was he nearing death and was okay with going out this way, but he struggled for a long time? Like, what was that about? But yeah, that was a pretty shocking moment as well. I thought this episode, even though it featured the people we know from the show, and it still felt very much like Atlanta, the first episode I think was a little bit better for me, just because I think the way it incorporated the humor and coupled it with this sense of dread once you realize what story this is being pulled from, I think made that one a little bit more interesting. But there's a weird moment in episode 2 that I wanted to ask about briefly in case people watch this and feel the need to respond. I'm at 20 minutes, so it's a good time to start wrapping up anyway. Ern goes to the airport and he doesn't get through the metal detector for whatever reason, and he's told he has to be wanded. And he says something like he lost his belt or something like that, and his underwear. So we now know that Ern says that basically if he puts his arms up to get wanded, his pants are gonna fall down, and he's not wearing any underwear. And he does it. He gets wanded. I didn't even think about this would possibly happen. Dude makes him turn around to get wanded on the back, and now he's facing dick out, facing the people who are in line behind him at the security checkpoint. And I thought that that moment was me played for more of a like a traumatic thing for him, like, and they were gonna do some kind of like woke kind of thing, because like I said, they said everyone likes black, everyone knows blackface ain't cool, we get it. They're going too hard to go viral. I felt like this was gonna be a thing where this was gonna be like some like really harmful moment for him, and this was something that they were gonna use to play up the idea of things being too woke and whatnot, and would have him reacting to this, feeling like he almost got assaulted in some way, having some sort of traumatic experience, but they don't really bring it up anymore. And I thought that was interesting because it made me wonder if we're actually meant to take away from it something a lot more simpler, which is that Ern ain't got no problem with people seeing his dick, so it's not supposed to play. Like, maybe I read too much into it, and even thinking that it was gonna go somewhere pretty dark or traumatic for Ern. Maybe I read too much into it, and then now, since I read too much into it, I'm now still reading too much into it by going the opposite direction and saying like, oh, since they didn't play anything out with that, maybe Ern just don't care about people seeing his dick. But I don't know. But I thought that was a weird thing to have into the episode that doesn't really end up having much of an impact on the future events of the episode. But because Ern was just all focused on Paperboy's show after that, and making sure he got paid up front. Casually saying he's not doing it anymore, but you can get the $20,000 back through insurance. I didn't know shit worked like that either. Like, I would have assumed that if you cancel the show, you give the money back. Like, he had the capability of it. They shouldn't have spent the $20,000 already. I feel like he could have just gave it back. But saying like you'll get it through insurance, it's kind of like, well, everybody gets paid. Why would you give it back? So Atlanta's back. I'm gonna be here every week to talk about each episode. I'll be able to dive a little bit deeper with my 20 minutes or so, give or take, that I like to keep these videos around to deep dive into future episodes. But so far, so good. I thought episodes 1 and 2 were pretty entertaining. They had everything that I have come to associate with Atlanta. Some humor, some timely social commentary, and a little bit of fantastical elements. So lots of cool stuff going on here, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week for episode 3. Peace.